trained systematically for a higher standard of life in spiritual values are no better than animals. And in this verse, they have particularly been put on the level of dogs, dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Modern university education practically prepares one to acquire a doggish mentality with which to accept a position of service to a greater master. After finishing a so-called education, the so-called educated persons move like dogs from door to door. Wait a minute. After finishing a so-called education, the so-called educated persons move like dogs from door to door with with applications for some service. And mostly they are driven away informed of no vacancy. This must be the situation outside India also.
Everywhere, even in America, the unemployment has increased by 2%.
What is how many people in countries like America are unemployed? It'd be
I
good to
don't know.
know.
Currently, it is 5% unemployment in America.
Is it considered big?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In India, it
What?
is 8%.
Oh, so China?
I don't know. I'll have to see.
So I heard that one of my relative, he went for MS in US, and it will become around 1 year, and they are still searching for a job. And it was like the cost was around more than 50 lakhs.
Yeah, I also read one article. Some lady, she had completed her medicine or something, and she went to America. No, 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 no. She went to Canada, Canada, and she couldn't get an appropriate type of job for being a doctor or something. And then she ended up as a lab technician, lab assistant. Uh, Highest value of global of unemployment, according to what is this? According to Bing.com. In 2023 was in Spain, 12.14%. The lowest value was in Qatar, 0.13%. Outrageous, no? Nobody would think that in a rich country you would be unemployed with appropriate accreditation. As dogs are negligible animals. Okay, here I have. What is this? This is Statista. Unemployment worldwide, statistics and facts. Two hundred and 10.94 million people are unemployed in the world. Unemployment rate in South Africa is the highest in G20. Percent, 50% of people are unemployed in certain parts of the world. India is less than 10%. USSR is also less than 10%. Australia, wow, what is this country? It is some close to 20%. And America, Canada, oh, it's not so glorious. So these people, how did they live their lives? India 7.80. Canada is 6.32. European Union is 6.0 as a whole. America is not there. UK is 4.15. America is 4.10 as of June 2024. India is double. So it's not much of an improvement, though. France 7.32. Sweden. No one would think of a place like Sweden. Finland. These are all very prestigious, big names. Canada 5.37. So even from 1991 to 2023, the history is not so great. Not so great. As
Prabhu,
dogs are negligent. Yeah.
even those who are employed, they keep complaining that this is not as per their desire. So they also keep changing. What is the use then? Even if they are employed, they are crying.
But at least they have something. They have some food. As dogs are negligible animals and serve the master faithfully for bits of bread, a man serves a master faithfully without sufficient rewards. Persons who have no discrimination. So that's about dogs. Persons who have no discrimination in the matter of foodstuff, who eat all sorts of rubbish as compared to hogs. Hogs are very much attached to eating stools. So stool is a kind of foodstuff for a particular type of animal. And even stones are eatables for a particular type of animal or bird. But the human being is not meant for eating anything and eating everything and anything. It's meant to eat grains, vegetables, fruits, milk, sugar, etc. Animal food is not meant for the human being. For chewing solid food, the human being has a particular type of teeth meant for cutting fruits and vegetables. The human being is endowed with two canine teeth as a concession for persons who will eat animal food at any cost. It is known to everyone that one man's food is another man's poison. Human beings are expected to accept the remnants of food offered to Lord Sri Krishna, and the Lord accepts foodstuffs from the categories of leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. 9.26. Bhagavad Gita 9.26. As prescribed by Vedic scriptures, no animal food is offered to the Lord. Therefore, a human being is meant to eat a particular type of food. We should not imitate the animals to derive so-called vitamin values. Therefore, a person who has no discrimination in regard to eating is compared to a hog. The camel is a kind of animal that takes pleasure in eating thorns. A person who wants to enjoy family life or the worldly life of so-called enjoyment is compared to the camel. Materialistic life is full of thorns, and so one should live only by the prescribed method of Vedic regulations just to make the best use of a bad bargain. Life in the material world is maintained by sucking one's own blood. The central point of attraction for material enjoyment is sex life. To enjoy sex life is to suck one's own blood, and there is not much more to be explained in this connection. One loses semen, which is as good as losing one's energy. So it is as good as losing blood. The camel also sucks its own blood while chewing thorny twigs. The thorns the camel eats cut the tongue of the camel, and some blood begins to flow within the camel's mouth. The thorns, mixed with fresh blood, create a taste for the foolish camel, and so he enjoys the thorn-eating business with false pleasure. Similarly, the great business magnates, industrialists who work very hard to earn money by different ways and questionable means, eat the thorny results of their actions mixed with their own blood. Therefore, the Bhagavatam has situated these diseased fellows along with the camels. The ass is an animal who is celebrated as the greatest fool even amongst the animals. The ass works very hard and carries burdens of the maximum weight without making profit for itself. The ass is generally engaged by the washerman whose social position is not very respectable. And the special qualification of the ass is that it is very much accustomed to being kicked by the opposite sex. When the ass begs for sexual intercourse, he is kicked by the fair sex, yet he still follows the female for such sexual pleasure. A henpecked man is compared, therefore, to the ass. The general mass of people work very hard, especially in the age of Kali. In this age, the human being is actually engaged in the work of an ass, carrying heavy burdens and driving thela and rickshaws. In India, it is diminished. It is diminishing. But I'm very sure that physical labor is very popular all over the planet. The so-called advancement of human civilization has engaged a human being in the work of an ass. The laborers in great factories and workshops are also engaged in such burdensome work, and after working hard during the day, the poor laborer has to be again kicked by the fair sex, not only for sex enjoyment, but also for so many household affairs. So Srimad Bhagavatam's categorization of the common man without any spiritual enlightenment into the society of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses is not at all an exaggeration. The leaders of such ignorant masses of people may feel very proud of being adored by such a number of dogs and hogs. But that is not very flattering. The Bhagavatam openly declares that although a person may be a great leader of such dogs and hogs disguised as men, if he has no taste for being enlightened in the science of Krishna, such a leader is also an animal and nothing more. He may be designated as a powerful, strong animal or a big animal, but in the estimation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is never given a place in the category of man on account of his atheistic temperament. Or in other words, such godless leaders of dogs and hog-like men are bigger animals with the qualities of animals in greater proportion. This is the content of the footnote. There is a footnote. Human life is meant for earning values. This life is called Arthadam, or that which can deliver values. And what is the greatest value of life? It is to return home back to God, as indicated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.15. One's selfishness must be aimed at the point of going back to God. The ass does not know his self-interest, and it works very hard for others only. A person who works very hard for others only, forgetting his personal interest available in the human form of life, is compared to the ass. So what is the problem here? The problem is paropakar without swapakar makes you into a donkey. It is not considered great. Paropakar with swapakar is acceptable. But paropakar without swapakar is foolishness. In the Brahma-vaivarta Purana, it is said, Ashitim Chaturashchaiva Laksham Stan Jiva Jatishu Brahmad Bhish Purushaih Prapyam Manushyam Janma Paryaya Tadep Kyal Labhatam, typing mistake, Jataha Teshamatma Bhimani Nam Varakanam Anashritya Govinda Charanadvayam. The human life is so important that even the demigods in the higher planets sometimes aspire for a human body on this earth, because in the human body only can one easily go back to Godhead. In spite of having obtained such an important body, if one does not re-establish his lost eternal relation with Govinda, Lord Krishna, he's certainly a fool who has forgotten his self-interest. This human form of material body is obtained by a gradual process of evolution to one body after another in the cycle of 8,400,000 varieties of life. And the poor man, forgetting this importance for his own interest, involves himself in so many illusory engagements for uplifting the position of others as a leader of political emancipation and economic development. There is no harm in trying for political emancipation or economic development, but one should not forget the real aim of life. All such philanthropic activities must be dovetailed to returning to Godhead. One who does not know this is compared to the ass who works only for others without their or his own welfare in mind. 20. Bile patorukrama vikramanye shrinvatah karna pute narasya jihvasati dardurikeva suta nacho pagayatyurgaya gatha. One was not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snakes and a tongue like the tongue of a frog. Tasyangani cha nishmalani ityahad bile iti panchabhi. Then in 5 verses beginning with text 20, it is pointed out that the body of such a person who's not interested in becoming the devotee of the Supreme Lord consists of limbs that are useless. Vritharantre, his ear holes are unworthy. आयुर्विशेष अवस्था वैफल्य दृष्टान्तत्वेन तत्तदंग विशेष वैफल्यमाह विलेपते. Now in 3 verses, he points out that that kind of life which is not taking advantage of Krishna consciousness is useless. But within that life, each limb of the body is useless. एवं पुरुषम अंगिनम निंदित्वा प्रत्येक भक्त्या विना प्रत्येक तदंगानि निंदति बिले इति पंचभि. So having criticized the man who possesses all of his bodily limbs or not engaging in Bhagavad Bhakti, now he criticizes each limb of his body for not being engaged separately in devotion service to the Supreme Lord in 5 verses. Bata. Where is the word bata? Bata. One meaning is like in the context, but another meaning is khede. Alas. Gramya varta bhujanga grihatulye. His ears are compared to the holes of snakes, which is itself comparable to Gramya Varta, vulgar discussions. And a tongue like the tongue, specifically, the tongue is referred to as the useless tongue is like that of frogs. The exact word that's used is asati. Asati also means unchaste. Shleshena, indirectly. Asati stri iva tasya sukrita sarvasvam viplavayati. Just as an unchaste wife completely destroys all of one's piety, like that. Atra yadyapi bhujadi एकांगकृतया अपि भक्त्या पुरुषः कृतार्थ एव भवति. Even though by using even each bodily limb, a man can become successful through Krishna Bhakti. Tadapi tasya angantarani tu vyarthani eva bhavanti. But then the other bodily limbs would be useless. Iti ashayana. With this in mind, anganam ninda vyaya. Therefore, with this in mind, he criticizes all the bodily limbs. This should be understood. Devotional service to the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. It is a transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, a devotee is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord. One can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord. And one can render service to the Lord with the help of all the senses. As such, the senses and the action of the senses are to be considered impure or materialistic as long as they are employed only in sense gratification. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification, but in the service of the Lord in toto. That means completely, totally. The Lord is the supreme with all senses, and the servitor who is part and parcel of the Lord also has the same senses. Service to the Lord is a completely purified use of the senses as described in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses. And thus there was a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electrical charge from the master to the disciple, as foolishly claimed by some propaganda mongers. Everything is full of sense and logic, and the exchange of views between the master and the disciple is possible only when the reception is submissive and real. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one should receive the teaching of Lord Chaitanya with intellect and full senses, so that one can logically understand the great mission. In the impure state of a living being, the various senses are fully engaged in mundane affairs. If the ear is not engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing about him from the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly the holes of the ear will be filled with some rubbish. Therefore, the messages of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam should be played all over the world very loudly. That is the duty of a pure devotee who has actually heard about them from the perfect sources. Many want to speak something to others, but because they are not trained to speak on the subject matter of Vedic wisdom, they are all speaking nonsense and people are receiving them with no sense. There are hundreds and thousands of sources for distributing mundane news of the world, and people of the world are also receiving it. Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the transcendental topics of the Lord, and the devotee of the Lord must speak loudly so that he can hear. So the idea of loudly is that we should be able to reach out. We should be able to reach out. So we have to understand pure Krishna consciousness, execute pure Krishna consciousness, and propagate pure Krishna consciousness loudly, meaning should propagate it to the maximum possible extent. The frogs loudly croak with the result that they invite the snakes to eat them. The human tongue is especially given for chanting the Vedic hymns and not for croaking like frogs. The word asati used in this verse is also significant. Asati means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. So when a woman becomes asati, stri, an unchaste woman, then anyone who associates with her will simply destroy their good qualities also. She has lost her good qualities. It will cause others who associate with her to lose their good qualities. Similarly, the tongue which is given to the human being for chanting the Vedic hymns will be considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense. So the person who uses his tongue in that way is doing bad for himself and is causing others to do bad for themselves also. 21. Bharah param pattat kirita jushtam apyuttamangam nan namen mukundam shavau karo na no gurute saparyam hare lasat kanchana kankano va. Upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden. If not bowed down before the personality of Godhead who can award mukti, freedom. The hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead Hari. Samsara sindho pravishantam tam adhikam nimajayatiti bhavaha. The upper portion of the body is only a heavy burden, though crowned with the silk turban. So even if one wears a turban, a silk turban on the head, that only adds to his weight. And Shri Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, this person who is opposed to Bhagavad Bhakti, he is entering into the ocean of material existence. And he will be immersed even more because of that weight. Deva Pitradayopi Taddattam Jaladikam Asuchitva Na Grihnantiti Bhavaha. And the hands, although decorated with glittering bangles, are like that of a dead man. It's not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead Hari. So therefore, even though they may offer water and so on to the demigods or the forefathers, they will not accept it because the hands are now as good as those of a dead man. Unclean, will not accept it. As stated here and before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotee makes distinctions between devotees and non-devotees. So the second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work. As referred to in the previous verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work. But the common man who is expected to become at least a third class devotee is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity. Even though he may be a very rich man or even a king, the silk turban or crown, the Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors. And men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Sri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. The Lord in the temple, in the worshipable form, is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood. Or the Lord in his Arsha incarnation as the deity in the temple shows immense favor to the fallen souls. The fallen souls by his auspicious presence. By the hearing process, as mentioned here and before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process in the routine work of devotion service, hearing, is the essential point. Hearing by all classes of devotees from the authentic sources like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. The common man who is puffed up with his material position and does not go down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or defies temple worship without any knowledge of the science, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weight. A foolish, puffed up man defies the signs of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he's in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, that godless man sinks into the ocean of nescience by the weight of his material possessions. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society. And so one must take heed of this great warning. The common man, if he has no time to worship the Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Prataprudra, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities, yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. The idea is that however important one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Maharaj Pratapudra's subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king, so much so that even the great Pathan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Prataparudra. And at last, Maharaj Prataparudra was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination to the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. This whole ornamentation must be a big business on this planet. Gold jewelry, this is all elite businesses. Gold, diamonds, silver. 22. Barhayite te nayane naranam lingani vishnor nan nirikshato ye padau nanam tau druma janma bhajo kshetrani nano vrajato harer yav. The eyes. We should not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of God in Vishnu. His forms, name, quality, etc. are like those printed on the plumes of a peacock. And the legs which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered are considered to be like tree trunks. Barhayite mayura pinchaturye iti tabhyam atmanaha uddhara padavim apashyantaha samsaraka kantaka kshetra eva patanti iti bhavaha. So the eyes are useless means that he is unable to see that status from which he can be delivered. And therefore, such people, they fall into lands filled with the thorns of material existence, birth and rebirth. Je nayane Vishnur murtir na nirikshete. This is referring to those eyes which do not see the deity forms of the Supreme Personality of God in Vishnu. Druma janma bhajete iti tatha tau vriksham mola tulya viti yamadute reva kutharaihi chidyamano tau bhavishya. Bhakti-vaibhava. The legs are considered to be like tree trunks. They will be cut by axes by the Yamadutas. So they are like that. Especially for the householder devotees, the path of deity worship is strongly recommended. As far as possible, every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master, must install the deity of Vishnu, forms like Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayana, or Sitaram especially, or any other form of the Lord like Nrsimha, Varaha, Gaurnitai, Matsya, Kurma, Shalagrama, Shila, and many other forms of Vishnu like Trivikrama, Keshava, Achyuta, Vasudeva, Narayana, and Damodara, as they are recommended in the Vaishnava Tantras or Puranas. And one should worship the deity with one's family, following the directions, relations of Archana Vidhi. Any member of the family who is about 12 years of age should be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. And all the members of the household should be engaged in the daily service of the Lord, beginning from morning 4 a.m. till night 10 p.m. by performing Mangalarati, Nirajana, Archana, Puja, Kirtana, Shringara, Bhoga Vaikali, Sandhyarati, Path, Bhog at night, Chayanarati, etc. Engagement in such worship of the deity under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master will greatly help the householders to purify their very existence and make a rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. Simple theoretical book knowledge is not sufficient for a neophyte devotee. Book knowledge is theoretical, whereas the Archana process is practical. Spiritual knowledge must be developed by a combination of theoretical and practical knowledge. And that is a guaranteed way for attainment of spiritual perfection. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also insisted that the householders must be focused on all these things. The training of devotion service for a neophyte devotee completely depends on the expert spiritual master who knows how to lead his disciple to make gradual progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. One should not become a pseudo spiritual master as a matter of business to meet one's family expenditure. One must be an expert spiritual master to deliver the disciple from the clutches of impending death. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has defined the bona fide qualities of a spiritual master, and one of the verses in that description reads, Shri Vigrahara Dhanityanana Shingara Tanmandira Marjanatau Yuktasya Bhaktam Shri Niyunja Topi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. Shri Vigraha is the archa or suitable worshipable form of the Lord, and the disciple should be engaged in worshipping the deity regularly by Shringar, proper decoration and dressing, as also by Mandira Marjana, the matter of cleansing the temple. The spiritual master teaches the neophyte devotee all these kindly and personally to help him gradually in the realization of the transcendental name, quality, form, etc. of the Lord. Only attention engaged in the service of the Lord, especially in dressing and decorating the temple, accompanied by musical kirtana and spiritual instructions from scriptures, can save the common man from the hellish cinema attractions and rubbish sex songs broadcast everywhere by radios. This was Prabhupada's method, that he kept the devotees busy with various kinds of preaching or deity worship. And in the temples, Prabhupada did not allow radios, TVs, and all these things. Because out of sight is out of mind. So we are running a great risk if 24/7 we are living with internet connectable devices. If one is unable to maintain a temple at home, you should go to another's temple where all the above performances are regularly executed. Visiting the temple of a devotee and looking at the profusely decorated forms of the Lord, well dressed in a well decorated, sanctified temple, naturally infuse the mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. People should visit holy places like Vrindavan, where such temples and worship of the deity are specifically maintained. Formerly, all rich men like kings and rich merchants constructed such temples under the direction of expert devotees of the Lord. Like the six Goswamis. And it is the duty of the common man to take advantage of the temples and festivals observed in the holy places of pilgrimage by following in the footsteps of great devotees. Anuvraja. one of the items of sadhana. One should not visit all these sanctified pilgrimage places and temples with sightseeing in mind, but one must go to such temples and sanctified places, immortalized by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, and be guided by proper men who know the signs. This is called anuvraja. Anu means to follow. It is therefore best to follow the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, even in visiting temples and the holy places of pilgrimage. One who does not move in that way is as good as a standing tree condemned by the Lord not to move. The moving tendency of the human being is misused by visiting places for sightseeing. The best purpose of such traveling tendencies could be fulfilled by visiting the holy places established by great acharyas, and thereby not being misled by the atheistic propaganda of money-making men who have no knowledge of spiritual matters. Yes?
Prabhuji, what is the meaning of this line? While visiting such holy places of pilgrimage, also you should follow instruction of spiritual master.
Go to these holy places in order to hear.
After Anuvraja, it is there.
One should not visit all these sanctified pilgrimage places and temples with sightseeing in mind, but one must go to such temples and sanctified places, immortalized by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, and be guided by proper men who know the science. We go to or we stay in holy places in order to increase our absorption in bhajana kriya. That is the whole point.
And Prabhu,
When we go to these holy places, it's not simply seeing these places. We're going for increased bhajana kriya. That is the point. Shravanam Kirtanam has to be increased. It's not simply seeing the latest things and finding out what is going on here and all. 23. जीवन छवो भागवतांघ्रिरेणुं न चातु मर्त्योभिर्लभेत यस्तु श्री विष्णुपद्या मनुजस्तुलस्याश्वशंछवो यस्तु न वेदगंधम. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. अच्छा, तत्तत् सर्व कारणविशेषं विना तत्तदपि न संपद्यते. तथा च श्री वैष्णव चरण रजसा सर्वांग स्नानमेव पूर्वोक्तेषु नमस्कार आदिषु कारणम्. So the cause for using all the senses in the service of the Lord is to offer obeisances unto the great devotees of the Lord. And in that way, when our body is bathed by the dust of their lotus feet, then all the senses will be used in the service of the Lord. Shri Charana Tulasi Gandhastu Hridvikara Karanam. But the fragrance of Tulasi at the lotus feet of the Lord is the cause for the transformation of the heart. Hridvikarastu Pulakadishu Karanam iti gyayam iti abhiprayena aha. And it is the transformation of the heart that is the cause for bringing out the transformations of Ashtasatvika Bhava, the standing of hair and so on. That is pointed out in the first half of this current verse. यम एव विना तादृश हृदयं न जायत इत्यभिप्रायणाः श्री इति सार्थेन. And in 1.5 verses beginning with the second half, it is pointed out that without experiencing the aroma of tulasi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord, there is no question of such an ecstatic heart. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur. Ekaikáni angani ninditva samuditani nindati. Having criticized each limb of the body individually, now the speaker criticizes all of the bodily limbs collectively. Nabhi labheta abhitaha na sprishet sarvangeshu na dharayet ityartha. If with one's entire body one does not hold the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee, then Sajivan Chavaha, he is certainly a living dead body. Jivan, while living. Shavaha, a dead body. He is a dead body while living. Preta Sharira Vishesha Eva Cheshtamana Sadhun Bhishayate. Like the body of a ghost, acting like the body of a ghost, he simply terrorizes the saintly persons. Tat panikrita saparyadikam api bhagavan na grishnati iti bhavaha. The implication is the menial services that are rendered by his hands are not accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Vishnupadya Vishnupada Lagnatvena Vishnupadi iti abhitanaya tulasya gandham naveda avaghraya na abhinanded iti artha. The person who does not breathe and appreciate the aroma of the tulasi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord, he is also like this. Swasakrit Shavaha. He is also a breathing dead body. Puruopi Saiva Jivan Shavaitiyapa. He is also another dead body. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the breathing dead body is a ghost. When a man dies, he is called dead. But when he again appears in a suitable form, in a subtle form, not visible to our present vision, and yet acts, such a dead body is called a ghost. Ghosts are always very bad elements, always creating a fearful situation for others. Similarly, the ghost-like non-devotees who have no respect for the pure devotees, nor for the Vishnu deity in the temples, create a fearful situation for the devotees at all times. The Lord never accepts any offering by such impure ghosts. There is a common saying that one should first love the dog of the beloved before one shows any loving sentiments for the beloved. The stage of pure devotion is attained by sincerely serving a pure devotee of the Lord. The first condition of devotion service to the Lord is therefore to be a servant of a pure devotee, and this condition is fulfilled by the statement, reception of the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee who has also served another pure devotee. That is the way of pure disciplic succession or devotional parampara. Maharaj Rahugana inquired from the great saint Jadabharata as to how he had attained such a liberated stage of a Paramahamsa, and in answer, the great saint replied as follows, Bhagavatam 5.12.12. Raghuganayita tapasanayati nachenjaya nirvapanadgrihadva na chandasanaiva jalagni surye vina mahatpada rajobhishekam. O King Raghugana, the perfection stage of devotion service or the Paramahamsa stage of life cannot be attained unless one is blessed by the dust of the feet of great devotees. It is never attained by tapasya austerity, the Vedic worshipping process, acceptance of the renounced order of life, the discharge of the duties of household life, the chanting of the Vedic hymns, or the performance of penances in the hot sun, within cold water, or before the blazing fire. In other words, Lord Shri Krishna is the property of his pure, unconditional devotees, and as such, only the devotee can deliver Krishna to another devotee. Krishna is never obtainable directly. Lord Chaitanya, therefore, designated himself as Gopi Bhartuh Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanu Dasa. or the most obedient servant of the servants of the Lord who maintains the gopi damsels at Vrindavan. Notice this expression, gopi bhartuhu, of the husband of the gopis, literally. A pure devotee, therefore, never approaches the Lord directly, but tries to please the servant of the Lord's servants, and thus the Lord becomes pleased. And only then can the devotee relish the taste of the tulasi leaves stuck to his lotus feet. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord is never to be found by becoming a great scholar of the Vedic literatures, but he is very easily approachable through his pure devotee. In Vrindavan, all the pure devotees pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Srimati Radharani is a tender-hearted feminine counterpart of the Supreme Whole, resembling the perfection stage of the worldly feminine nature. Therefore, the mercy of Radharani is available very readily to the sincere devotees, and once she recommends such a devotee to Lord Krishna, the Lord at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. The conclusion is therefore that one should be more serious about seeking the mercy of the devotee than that of the Lord directly, and by once doing so by the goodwill of the devotee, the natural attraction for the service of the Lord will be revived. We saw that at this point earlier. Okay, 25. We'll deal with it tomorrow. What is the time? It's 8:25. So now it's okay. Fine. I'll take a Bhagavata one tomorrow. Yes.
Favored or blessed by dust of pure devotees. So it has one literal means that literally taking the dust. Does it have any other meanings also?
Means to carry out their instructions without duplicity. To carry out the instructions of such exalted devotees without duplicity, without interruption, with all seriousness.
Okay. And Prabhu, in previous purport, in commentary, when it was mentioned that those whose legs do not go to holy places are like tree trunks, and then you mentioned that they'll cut by excess by Yamudutas.
They're like that. They're as if fit to be cut by the Yamadutas through access.
So this much horrible punishment awaits each one of the non-devotee.
If you do not engage in devotion service to Lord Vishnu, which is a common duty, it's a common duty. There are 30 common duties for all human beings. You don't execute the common duties, then it is automatically a sin. Therefore, in Vedic civilization, even if one is worshipping some demigod or is interested in going to Swarga or he wants to attain the Brahma Jyoti, whatever, everybody is somehow or other engaged in various services to Lord Vishnu. That is always there. Therefore, Janmashtami, Ram Navami, these are celebrated by all those who claim to be following the Vedas. The Vaishnava within Vedic culture is a person who is exclusively dedicated to pleasing Lord Vishnu. I was told that there was one Chandrasekharendra Saraswati who was head of the Kanchi Shankaracharya Peeth. He passed away. I think maybe a couple of decades back. I was told that he was asked, who is a Hindu? And he gave the answer, a Hindu is one who worships Vishnu. Then he was asked, then what is a Shaiva? Then he said, one who worships Vishnu and Shiva is a Shaiva. One who worships Vishnu and Shakti is a Shakta. One who worships Vishnu and Ganapati is a Ganapatya, and so on. But one who worships Vishnu and only Vishnu is a Vaishnava. You cannot avoid engaging in devotional service to Lord Vishnu. He was also a little bit influenced by Bhagavatam. So they know, in general, people, there are at least some who know these things. Okay, what am I looking for? I'm looking for Bhagavatam, Vichimala. Here only. Why didn't I? Okay, there it is. Where did I start? Okay, first chapter, up to text 35, we have seen. Up to text 35, we have seen. Okay, let me do that then. Let me do this. And this. Okay. 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. 35 was over. So then 36. This is all 1.7.3. 1.7. तस्मिन् स्व आश्रमे व्यासो बदरी षण्डमण्डिते आसीनोप उपस्पृश्य प्रणिदध्यो मनस्वयम्. In that place, Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. I'm going to move this. Say Badari Shandamandita, Chiya, Ashrame, Vyas, Snanante, Upaveshan Karataha, स्वयं मन के प्रणिधान कर ले. So Vyasadeva, in his ashrama that was decorated by berry trees, badari trees, sat down after taking bath and he concentrated his mind. अर्थात भक्ति भावे चित्त स्थिर कर ले. In other words, with an attitude of devotion service to Lord Hari, he fixed his mind. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male apashyat purusham purnam mayam chitat apashrayam. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotion service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. So by the process of linking up in devotional service, he engaged and fixed his mind perfectly. While ensuring that his mind was not contaminated by anything material. And he saw the absolute personality of Godhead. Also, he saw his energy, Maya, which was fully under his control. Pashrayam, Tahar Nirmal Chitta, Bhakti Jogir Dara, Samadhistha Hoile, Purna Purush Krishna Ke Darshan Kurile. So when his spotless mind was fixed in Samadhi through Bhakti Yoga, then he could see the Purna Purusha Krishna, the perfect person Krishna. Krishner Durashrita Maya Tattva ke darshan kore. Then he saw the principle of Maya, who was situated far away from Krishna. Paripurna Krishna Swarupe Jai Chit Shakti Nitya Avasthit. Aha Chaya Swarup Durasthita Maya ke dekhile. He saw the shadow of the spiritual energy of Lord Sri Krishna, which is eternally situated in the completely perfect form of Krishna. In other words, there is a spiritual potency that Lord Sri Krishna possesses, who is eternally situated with him. Krishna is completely perfect, and this eternal potency, eternal spiritual potency is always with him. And the shadow of that spiritual potency is situated far away from Lord Sri Krishna. That shadow potency is Maya, and Vyasadeva saw that shadow potency. 58. Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunaatmakam paropi manute nartham tatkritam chabhipadyate. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. Illusion by whom? Illusion by which? Maya, by that external energy. The living entities, in spite of being transcendental, take it for granted that they are actually conditioned by the three modes of material nature or a product of matter. They consider themselves to be product of matter because they are conditioned by the three modes of material nature. And they undergo the reaction. And because of that, they undergo the respective reactions, which are actually unnecessary. They are superfluous to the living entity themselves, to the living entities themselves. Chit Shaktir Ono Prakash Roop Jeev Shakti Prasuta Chit Karna Swarup Maya Peksha Bharatatva Jeev Ke Dekhile. And then he saw the Jiva, which is a superior truth in relation to Maya. And it is this Jiva, which is a spiritual particle. It's a spiritual particle born from the Jiva Shakti, which itself is a minute manifestation of the spiritual Shakti. Say Jeev, Maya Kartrik Mohit Huya, Apna ke Maya Trigunaatmak Tattva Boliya Mone Korite Chen. And it is this Jiva which considers itself to be a truth that is comprised of the three gunas of Maya because of being bewildered by that Maya. So bewildered by that Maya, that Jiva considers himself to be a principle that is comprised of the three modes of material nature. 59. अनर्थोपशमं साक्षात् भक्ति योगम अधोक्षजे लोकस्या जानतो विद्वांस चक्रे सात्वत संहिताम. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. The supremely learned Vyasa compiled this Vedic literature in relation with the supreme truth for the sake of the general mass of men who are unaware of the linking process of devotional service unto the transcendence that directly brings about mitigation of those things which are superfluous. Abar dekhilenje, and he also saw that adhokshuja Krishne bhakti jogei te jiver anartha upasamer ekmatra karan. It is bhakti yoga to adhokshuja Krishna. That is the sole reason for the mitigation of the calamities of the jiva. Vidvat Prabhu Vyas अज्ञ लोग दिए उपकारेर जन्य এই সাতপথ সংহিতা লিখিলেন. The excellent scholar, the excellent knower Vyasadeva then wrote this Satpata Samhita, this Vaishnava Vedic hymn for the benefit of the ignorant mass. Yasyam vai shruyamanayaam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktir Utpadyate Pumsa Shokam Moha Bhayapaha. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotion service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, feelings of devotion service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, sprout up, which extinguishes the lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness of the living being. Srimad Bhagavat रूप से ही सातो संहिता श्रवण करिले परम पुरुष कृष्णे जीवेर शोकमय भयनाशिका भक्ति उदय हर. By hearing this Satvata Samhita in the form of Srimad Bhagavata, bhakti that destroys the shoka, moha, and bhaya of the devotees. Bhakti meaning bhakti to the Supreme Person, Paramapurusha, Krishna, arises. And this is bhakti that destroys the jivas, shoka, moha, and bhaya. So samhitam bhagavatim kriptvanukrumya chatmajam shukam madhyapayamasa nivrittim niratam munishi. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son Sri Shukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. So that Vyasadeva, that sage, he did work on the compilation of this Vedic literature that is related with the personality of Godhead. And then by correction and repetition, he taught it to his own son, Shukadeva, who was engaged in the path of self-realization. निवृत्ति निरत स्वीय पुत्र शुकदेव के से भागवती संहिता प्रस्तुत वो अनुक्रम पर्या अध्यापन को रायले. He introduced this Bhagavati Samhita and put it in proper order and taught it to his son Shukadev, who was already engaged in Nivritti Marga, in the pathway of detachment, renunciation. And then we have Atma Ramascha Munayo Nirgrantha Apyurukrame Kurvantya Haitukim Bhakti Mitham Bhuta Guno Harihi. All different varieties of Atma Ramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotion service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Those who take pleasure in the Atma, which generally refers to the spirit self, the sages who are freed from all bondage, in spite of being sages, freed from all bondage, render unalloyed devotion service unto the great adventurer, Kurukrama. Such are the wonderful qualities of the Lord. कृष्णे এই रूप একটি আকর্ষিকা শক্তি আছে যে তার দ্বারা আকৃষ্ট হইয়া अविद्या ग्रंथि शून्य आत्माराम मुनिगण ও গুরুক্রম কৃষ্ণে অহৈতুকী ভক্তি করিয়া থাকে. Krishna has such an attractive potency, such a potency of attraction that even the self-delighting sages who are devoid of the knots of ignorance engage in bhakti, unconditional bhakti to that great adventurer Krishna. Jadakrishta Purusher say Akarshaner to Kothai nai. So then what to speak of such attraction for men who are attracted to matter? Harer Gunakshiptam Matir Bhagavan Badarayanihi Adhyagan Mahadakhyanam Nityam Vishnu Janapriyaha. Srila Shukadev Goswami, son of Srila Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees of the Lord. Thus he underwent the study of this great narration, Srimad Bhagavatam. His mind, absorbed in the transcendental attributes of Hari, the personality of Godhead, the powerful son of Vyasadeva, underwent studies in this great narration regularly, and he became beloved to the devotees of the Lord. Say Hariguni Akshipta Chitta Nitya Vaishnav Jana Priya Badarayani Bhagavan Shok A Brihadakhyan Adhyay Kuryatsile. His mind, overcome by the transcendental qualities of Lord Hari, the powerful Shukadev Goswami, who was the son of Badarayana Vyasa and who was eternally dear to the Vaishnavas, studied this extensive narration, and that is further indicated in 1.2.3. 2.3. यस्वानुभावमखिल श्रुतिसारमेकमध्यात्मदीपमतिति तीर्षतां तमोन्धं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनाम्. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge after having personally assimilated it by experience. Let me offer my obeisances unto the spiritual master of the great sages. That is the son of Vyasadeva, who spoke what he had self-assimilated, what he had experienced, which was the all-around cream of the Vedas, and which was unrivaled, the one and only transcendental torchlight for materialistic men who desire to overcome the deeply dark material existence. And he spoke this very confidential supplement to the Vedas out of causeless mercy. जिन्हें आत्म समाधि लब्ध अखिल वेद सार आध्यात्म दीप स्वरूप भागवत शास्त्र संसारी अथच माया तमो अंध उत्तीर्ण होते इच्छुक व्यक्ति दिगे प्रति करुणापूर्वक বলিয়াছিলেন সেই মুনি দিগের গুরু व्यासपुत्र सुखदेवকে আমরা অনুগমন করি। We follow Sukadeva, the son of Vyasa and the guru of the Munis, who mercifully spoke this essence of all the Vedas, which he had attained through his own samadhi, and which is like a spiritual lamp. This scripture, Bhagavad, he spoke this because he spoke this to persons who desire to cross over the darkness, the blinding darkness of Maya. Persons who are caught up in samsara, or the cycle of birth and rebirth. এই অধ্যায়ের ভাগবতের মূল তাৎপর্য এবং উদয় ইতিহাস বর্ণিত হইল। In this chapter, the fundamental purport and the history of the appearance of the Bhagavata have been described. Vaitava shunya dharmer o suchana hoilo. That was also an indication of that kind of dharma that is devoid of deception. Vaitava swalpa o brihad bhede dvividha. There are two types of deception. Petty and great. Lokaishana pravritti eshanatray vaitava bhate. किंतु केवल सायुज्य रूप एकात्मता सिद्धि प्रयास के कोई तो प्रधान बोला जाए। To cheat the world and so on. Okay, to desire, I understand this is Aishanatraya. To desire higher planetary systems, to desire wife and children, to desire wealth. These are the three great hankerings. And certainly there is deception. These are just different forms of deception. But the endeavor to attain the perfection of oneness in the form of exclusive sayujya, impersonal sayujya, that can be referred to as the chief of all deception. Shuddha Bhakti jo tad ubhay shunya. And pure Bhakti Yoga is devoid of both of these forms of deception. Iti Srimad Bhagavatarka Marichimalayam Pramana Nirdeshe Sri Bhagavata Arka Udayaha Naman Vitiyah Kiranaha. Correct? This is where we are now. Did I miss something? So this completes this portion. Tritiya Kiranaha, Bhagavata Vibhriti. A description of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam Shukamukhad amrita dravasam yutam Pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam Muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. 1.3. No, made a mistake. No. For expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Oh, those who are full in the knowledge of mellows, oh, expert and thoughtful ones on earth, always do relish the book dealing in the science of the eternal relation with the Lord. Do relish that juice which is relishable until liberation or even in a liberated condition. It is the fully matured fruit of the desire tree of the Vedic literatures. It is perfect in all respects. It is semi-solid and soft and therefore easily swallowable. It is the nectar from the lips of Srila Shukadeva Goswami, the original speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Chaitanya Chandraya Namaha. Obeisance unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya Chandraya Namaha. My obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya Chandra. Varaha Nagaranandam, Sri Raghunatha Samyam, Srimad Bhagavata Acharyam Vande Chaitanya Parshadam. Sri Raghunatha Sangyakam, it must be. Srimad Bhagavata Acharyam Vande Chaitanya Parshadam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the associate of Lord Chaitanya, Srimad Bhagavata Acharya, who is known as Sri Raghunatha, and who was the bliss of Varaha Nagara. Srimad Bhagavata Aswado Vrajeyasya Satam Mude Bhatta Goswaminam Vande Raghunatha Abhidham Hitam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Bhatta Goswami, known as Raghunath, who relished Srimad Bhagavatam in Vraja for the pleasure of the saints. Jini Nigam अर्थात वेद, Nikhila Nigam अर्थात वेद Kalpaturu. The entire Nigam or the Veda is a Kalpaturu. Brahma Sutra say Kalpaturu full. The Vedanta Sutra is the flower of that desire tree. Srimad Bhagavat, Vaivriksher, fall. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the fruit of that tree. Chit jagate oi fall, pakwa hoile, Shukadev pakshi hoiya, taha ke prithvite ani achen. When the fruit was mature in the spiritual world, then Shukadev became a bird and brought it to this earth. Sutarang, therefore, consequently, oi fall, Shukamukhamrita drava samyukta. Therefore, it is mixed with the nectar from Shukadev's mouth, Shuka's mouth. Krishna Lila, oi Bhagavaturu Oler Ros. And Krishna Lila is the juice of the fruit of the Bhagavata. Hey Bhavuk Sakar, Oh, expert and thought, oh, all of you who are expert and thoughtful. परमानंद निवृत्ति रूप रस लय उपस्थित हुआ पर्यंत ওই रस मुहुर मुहुर पान करो. This juice uh, is supreme bliss and satisfaction until you attain, until you faint. Continuously drink this juice. Rasik hoile ar ei oi nirbritti hoi hoibe na. Should be nirbritti, not nirbritti. When one becomes absorbed in this rasa, this juice, this satisfaction does not perish. তখন মুহুর মুহুর সাধন ছাড়িয়া নিরন্তর পান করিবে. So then again and again, giving up other practices, one will simply drink sadhane bhav. Through sadhana, one comes to bhav. Thai bhave samagri jojanaye ras. And in sthai bhava, when all the ingredients of rasa are put together, then there is rasa. Krishna Leela, rasamoy tattva. Krishna Leela is the principle of rasa. विभावे आपनाके स्थित करिया ताहाते प्रवेश करो. Situate yourself in that vibhava of that rasa and enter into Krishna Leela. Okay, I'll stop with that. Anshakalpaturvyasya Vipasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.